Welcome to History 1301 video assignment for Module 3, The Early Republic. This video assignment is titled Work in the Market Revolution. American life had changed little during the colonial era. On land, people got around either by walking or by horsepower. Roads were little more than trails through the woods. On water, they used sailing ships, using existing rivers and streams. There were no canals. Most manufacturing was done by hand, using the artisan-apprentice relationship. To communicate over long distances, people wrote letters. Because many Americans devoted their energies to solving the problems that inhibited interstate commerce, an economic transformation known as the Market Revolution took shape during the first half of the 19th century. There were three catalysts for the Market Revolution: innovations in transportation, innovations in communication, and innovations in farming. This video assignment discusses the transformation of the workplace because of the market revolution. Craftsmen who worked at home before the market revolution now gathered in factories. There, they faced new threats in the workplace as immigrants, women, and some African Americans sought new opportunities. When combined with the prosperity that the market revolution created for some Americans, there was also the rise of the first labor movement in the United States. Before the market revolution, craftsmen worked at home, using the master-apprentice model. Using the catalyst of the market revolution, entrepreneurs gathered artisans into large workshops to oversee their work, to subdivide tasks, and to mass-produce goods. As mass production lowered unit prices, craftsmen faced demands for greater output at lower wages in order to maximize profit for workshop owners. Factories superseded traditional craft supervision altogether. Factories gathered large groups of workers under central supervision, thus eliminating the need for a mentor-apprentice relationship. Factories also replaced hand tools with machines. In 1790, Samuel Slater founded the first factory in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. It produced yarn. The embargo of 1807 spurred the establishment of the first large-scale factories. The first factory town was created at Lowell, Massachusetts, in 1836. It produced textiles. Most of the factories were located in the Northeast and used water as their main power source. By 1850, the North's economy focused on factories producing cotton textiles, while the South provided the North's cotton. Factories also changed the perception of time. Activities on the farm changed with the seasons, and people worked from sunrise to sunset. In artisan workshops, intense work was followed by intense fun. In the factories, workers worked for specific amounts of time, paid on an hourly wage. Thus, factory workers depended on the clock. New immigrants, women, and children filled out the factory floors, while native-born men stayed at home. Between 1790 and 1830, immigration did not contribute to American population growth. But between 1840 and 1860, over 4 million people entered the United States. 90% immigrated to the north. Most came from Ireland and Germany as refugees from disasters. The Irish fled the Great Potato Famine of 1845 to 1851. They built railroads, they dug canals, and worked as common laborers, servants, and longshoremen, and factory operatives. Among those who fled the famine was the family of Andrew Carnegie. Eventually settling in Pittsburgh, young Andrew entered the workforce as a bobbin boy. He taught himself Morse code and became a runner for a telegraph company. By the Civil War, Carnegie was the secretary for Pennsylvania Railroad President Thomas Scott. Carnegie ran the railroad after Scott was called to Washington. In the 1870s, Carnegie became a multimillionaire by investing in steel. The Germans fled a political upheaval from the revolutions of 1848. The Germans were craftsmen. They settled in Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Milwaukee. A German language culture developed in these areas. And by the way, what product do you identify with St. Louis and Milwaukee? Of course, beer. Women could not compete freely with men for employment. Women could not sign independent contracts, could not sue in their own name, nor could they control their own wages. The traditional roles at home were reduced by mass-produced goods. Yet some women went to work in the factories. Textile mills in New England relied heavily on women and children. For the factories, women could be paid lower wages than men. Plus, factory managers realized that women worked better with the machines, as they had smaller hands. The mill girls who worked in these factories were unmarried. They lived in boarding houses with strict rules regarding personal behavior. And once they did become married, they were forced to leave the textile mill. The significance of the mill girls is that for the first time, large numbers of women left home to participate in the public world and in the public sphere. But at the same time, other women stayed home. This is the cult of domesticity that glorified a woman's ability to create a private environment at home. It shielded the home from the market economy as the cult sustained values such as love, friendship, and mutual obligation. These women remained in the private sphere. It became a badge of respectability for women to stay home and to not work in the factories. Women gained more power over the home as men went to work in the factories. As women made decisions about how many children to have, the overall national birth rate declined. Most blacks in the United States remained slaves during the market revolution. Free blacks in the North faced discrimination. They lived in the poorest sections of town and were barred from schools and other public facilities. Free blacks created their own institutional life that centered on mutual aid, educational societies, and independent churches, such as the African Methodist Episcopal. Free blacks experienced economic downward mobility because the vast majority of free blacks earned wages in unskilled jobs and as domestic servants. The federal government denied them access to public land. By 1860, free blacks were prohibited from entering and living in many states in the North. This included the states that bordered the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, such as Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, and I should add, Oregon. As the market revolution progressed, the right to compete for economic advancement became essential. Many Americans seized the opportunity here to become rich. One such example is John Jacob Astor, who was the son of a German butcher. Astor immigrated to the United States in 1783. He earned large profits in the export-import business. Astor shipped American furs to China and received teas and silk from China. His base of operations was on the Pacific coast in Oregon. Astor then created a second fortune in real estate. Astor subdivided the northern half of Manhattan Island and created Central Park. When he died in 1848, Astor was the richest man in the United States. Astor was considered a self-made man. He made his fortune through hard work, not inheritance. This belief was supported by Andrew Jackson and his followers. When asked whether he would have done anything different in his life, Astor replied, quote, "Could I begin life again, knowing what I know now and having money to invest, I would buy every foot of land on the island of Manhattan." Labor's critique of the market economy directly challenged the idea that individual improvement offered an adequate response to social inequality. In his American Dictionary, published in 1828, Noah Webster defined liberty as a state of exemption from the power or control of another. The early labor movement applied this definition to their cause. The market revolution widened the gap between the rich and the poor. This is an inequality of wealth. Men who cannot pay off their debts simply rotted in jail. Union organizations spread at the local level. In the 1820s, workmen's parties sought to mobilize lower-class support for candidates by calling for free public education, the end to debtor's prison, and legislation for the, quote, 10-hour workday. However, these work parties were nothing more than short-lived political organizations. Strikes were common in the 1830s, but these strikes were nothing compared to the strikes of the late 19th or 20th centuries, and workers simply walked off the job one day and then returned for work the next day as if nothing had ever happened. While many welcomed the market revolution, others dreaded its consequences. John Adams said that commerce has destroyed every Republican government. Thomas Jefferson hated businessmen for leading the United States away from his agrarian ideal of the republic of small farms. Langston Billsley called wage labor the essence of slavery. Thank you for watching this video on work in the market revolution, and as always, may the force be with you.